Satan, Mephistopheles, Lucifer. These are just 3 words for the same thing. A phenomenon that's older than mankind. A power that affects.
We are talking Land of the Minotaur, also known as The Devil's Men. This one stars Donald Pleasence and Peter Cushing and is a British-Greek co-production, actually filmed in Greece, and it's essentially a kind of devil worship story. So what we have is a kind of devil worship cult led by Peter Cushing's character, and they want to sacrifice couples to their kind of like icon, which is this Minotaur, who in the purposes of this story is essentially the devil. And then we have a local priest played by Donald Pleasence who kind of knows about what's kind of going on, and a couple of kind of students of his end up kind of getting kidnapped by the kind of the devil worshipping cult. And then we kind of have a couple of other kind of characters kind of get introduced as well, and ultimately it's a battle between good and evil. What'll happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what I think works first of all with Land of the Minotaur. I remember watching this when I was a lot younger, expecting it to be about Minotaurs and being sorely disappointed. So sorry if you're expecting a Minotaur film, that is not the case. We get a statue of a Minotaur and that's about it. But what we do have is a somewhat kind of creepy kind of a cult movie that does have, I think, some quite eerie moments. I mean, it's obviously a 1976 movie, so by today's standards, it's obviously very kind of tame. But nonetheless, you know, people kind of like in a kind of a weird sort of trance, sacrificing, you know, couples to their god, looking kind of like stony-eyed and stuff. There is certainly some kind of eerie menace to it. And obviously you've got horror icons, Donald Pleasence and Peter Cushing, really kind of like can do this kind of stuff in their sleep. For some reason Donald Pleasence has got like a weird Irish accent in this, but whatever. But they're infinitely watchable. To be fair, Peter Cushing doesn't get a huge amount of screen time with this one, but we do see quite a lot of Donald Pleasence, and I think their characters are good, and they're obviously consummate professionals and always kind of watchable. I don't think it's their best work, to be honest with you, but nonetheless they are, you know, thoroughly engaging characters nonetheless. I think you'll enjoy the 70s-ness of this movie as well. It has a real kind of like typical kind of 70s charm. All of the kind of the younger characters are very groovy, let me just kind of say that. And the director of this movie loves a zoom, let me just tell you. And if you want a drinking game, count how many times the camera's going to kind of zoom in on kind of someone's face. And it's a kind of a trope of 70s movie, but it seems to be so overdone here. It's actually kind of quite amusing. I really enjoyed the soundtrack of this movie. It's kind of, you know, again, that kind of synthy kind of 70s, well maybe not synth, but kind of electronic kind of 70s kind of music. But it's actually quite effective, I feel. And I do think on top of that, the movie really benefits from being filmed in Greece, because it kind of gives it this kind of this ancient kind of feel. And we have various kind of shots of ruins and kind of temples and stuff like that. So you kind of do feel that there's this kind of like this ancient kind of like presence that is kind of, you know, obviously that's kind of what they're going for. But I think it really adds to the atmosphere of the kind of the movie here. I think the movie starts off pretty strong, and the ending in the movie is bizarre. I'm not quite sure if I'd say it was good, but it was certainly a memorable ending. So let's transition to what I think doesn't work in this movie. I'm going to talk about the ending because, so spoilers ahead, it's a 1976 movie, so, you know, I'm going to spoil a movie this old. And that's the first thing I'm going to talk about, because obviously we just kind of left off what I thought about it, and it is a bizarre ending, because we essentially get Donald Pleasence throwing holy water at the statue and Peter Cushing, and then everyone explodes. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, I thought these were supposed to be like human, kind of like acolytes or something, but everyone just explodes, and they're not even touched. Half of them aren't even touched by the kind of the holy water, but they just explode. It was so weird. And then they had these like the younger kind of members of this cult, who the kind of like I guess under 18s, don't explode. They just kind of wander off, and then Peter Cushing says, "Oh, but it's Donald Pleasence's character says, oh, it's because they're innocent." I think one of these girls is the main one that kind of stabs the people. She certainly isn't innocent. So the ending is really kind of like, it just seems like it kind of just is like happens. You know, it feels like it's very quickly put together. It's memorable, I will give it that, but it just kind of seems to kind of end very, very kind of quickly without a lot of build up. So that's the ending. So maybe what else would I say outside of that? This movie, I think, really meanders in the middle. You know, like I said, I enjoyed the setup here, although I didn't really feel like we got to know much of the characters outside of kind of like the Donald Pleasence and his kind of helper Milo. The people that kind of get kidnapped, the ones he's trying to rescue, they kind of very kind of weak characters there, and you kind of even forget that, you know, who was it they got kidnapped again? And you kind of see them in the kind of sacrificial chamber. I thought, I don't even recognise this guy. So you kind of know that it's somewhat of a cannon fodder kind of situation there. But the kind of the second act of this movie, which to be honest with you is quite long, if we're talking about length of time, is rather meandering. It's kind of lots of like, let's go and speak to the police, let's go and speak to this lady kind of thing, let's kind of walk down this street or something, let's kind of have a look at this. And it's just like, you don't really feel you get a lot of plot progression in that kind of second act, and it's just kind of spinning its wheels really. So I think the movie could have had a little bit more kind of going on, to be honest. Again, it's a 1976 movie, maybe not the kind of the most sophisticated of kind of horror films were kind of coming out then necessarily, but obviously we know we had stuff like The Exorcist, which obviously did a good job. So there's, you know, there is precedence. So I don't think that you can get a pass for this just because it's an old film. But yeah, you feel like there's kind of they need to have a little bit more kind of going on with it, because the plot feels a little meandering, particularly kind of in the in that kind of that second act. And as I say, some of the kind of the camera work here is a little bit erratic at times, and very of its time. And today it kind of seems a little quaint, to be honest. I still enjoyed the movie, I will say that. I don't think it's necessarily a bad film by any stretch of the imagination. And it's partly down to the kind of obviously the two kind of lead actors here, who, as always, do a great performance and kind of make interesting characters, even though I think the script here needed a little bit of work. And I quite enjoy the kind of the spookiness of the whole kind of like devil worship. And I have to say, the kind of the set of this kind of like this altar and the kind of where they do the sacrifices is pretty impressive, and I kind of enjoyed that. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about what kind of is going on in regards to you know, the setup for these cultists. I didn't really feel like we kind of got to know why they were doing things, you know, what's the benefit for them and things like this, and ultimately what their kind of end goal is. It's just kind of there. They're just sacrificing people for reasons that we don't really kind of know. So again, some script issues. I'll give it a 5 out of 10 because it still is an entertaining movie, although it's kind of shallow and ultimately could have done a little bit more. Could have done more with the kind of the setup really. 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.